Okay, so we're trying something completely new. Let's see how this goes. A friend of mine, Cap, asked me about how to set the date on his Seiko. Now, we could go through a simple way of explaining that, where we would just kind of say, do this, do that, but that's kind of not us. So we're going to do something a little bit different. And we're going to start, which is always fun, with something new. And we're trying, to explain the little crown and what to do with it. We're going to go into this big book, which is extremely heavy and requires its own carrying case. This is the authorized biography of Patek Philippe. And in it, we are going into a particular thing, which is this. This is an example of an old watch that you had to use a key to wind and to set. The key would be into there for the winding and over there for the setting. You did that because the gears in the back, that's how they would be faced. You would not. This is not functional in anything other than something to connect to your key fob or your watch chain or whatever. Now that was the way it was all done up until this guy came along. This guy is Jean-Adrien Philippe, and he invented this thing. This thing is, well, that's the crown, and the crown was now used because he invented a stem winding and setting mechanism, which basically had this transmit that type of turning into that type of turning, and then it would wind, probably in here, and then it would set using that. And just so you realize that Jean-Adrien Philippe is the second half of Patek Philippe. And without him, we wouldn't be doing any of this. So we're now going to go back to the Seiko we were talking about. Okay, so that explains a bit about where the crowns came from and where the stems came from. And now we're going to go into what we're actually talking about, which is kind of how to wind your watch. Okay, to explain this a little bit, we're going to use this. This is a Tissot ball clock. People don't really know it exists. It's actually very cool. In this case, this is a skeletonized movement, which I really enjoy kind of messing around with. Now, if you look at this and you remember the stem that we looked at, the stem kind of goes there, and this is the crown. We're going to go through this as an example of the best way you can see this. Okay, now, when you wind this, when you wind the crown, you're going to start seeing this over here get tighter, and then you're going to see the second hand over here start moving. And then you're going to see up here, you're going to see something start swinging. Okay? There. Now you see that starting to swing. You see this compressing, you see that starting to swing. Okay? There. Now, well, it's just very pretty, but you can't really see a lot of the movement back. Well, you see the movement over there, if you see it. Okay, there. That's a better shot. That over there. Okay, now, if we were to set this, and this being a one position, well, this is a closed position, meaning that the crown is down. If this is only a time-telling watch or clock, so we pull up one click. Okay, I always get nervous about doing this. There, you heard that click, and then now you would set the time. And if you see, you can see all the little different gears moving, right? Especially up there, right below the Tissot sign. You see them? I don't know if you can see them very well or not, but anyway, there. Okay, so that is one way. This is a regular crown. It is not a screw down crown. Okay. This is also a regular crown. It's not a screw down crown. And it is on a really nice Seiko Presage chrono, which debuted in Baselworld a few years ago. And it debuted at a time when prices for Seikos hadn't gone up yet. And no one said anything, but if you look carefully inside what Seiko actually said during one press conference, they said that Presage was the highest level of Seiko, the highest family. Now, what was interesting then was people said, well, yeah, okay, well, actually no one noticed, but what happened to Grand Seiko? So that was an indication early on that they were going to separate Grand Seiko, which meant, and I told my friends this, and they're very happy for that, that you should start buying Grand Seikos now because the prices are all going to go up. And big surprise, the prices all went up. Okay, so this is a date as well as chrono and so on, but for our purposes, we're looking at it as the date function that we're going to change, and it is a 1. Okay, that's the normal setting. The winding would be normally without pulling it out, without pulling it out into the second position or the first out position. Then if you want to click it out, okay, that's where it's kind of hard, especially with these gloves. You take it out to 1 position there, and then you set, you're going to see the date change there. See? Now that isn't a crown, that is not a screw down crown. Okay, then if you took it to the 3rd position, or the second out position or the 3rd position, first being closed, that is when you would set the time. Okay. Now a lot of Seikos people have a screw down crown. You got to be real careful because it is completely possible to pull the heck out of a screw down crown if you try hard enough, which as a young child I did. So this case is a screw down crown, so you unscrew it, and there, you feel that or hear that, and that first position is the winding. Although honestly, in a lot of Seikos, you actually can't wind them manually, so that's a whole different idea. But anyway, figure that out depending on your watch. So for the 2nd position, that would be where you change the date or the day. If you go 1 direction, it would be the date. So in this case, we're setting it for there. As an example, then Sunday would be go the other direction, and it would change the day. And then you take it out of the 3rd point, and you're setting the time. Now, one thing to note is that if this there, see, now you see this, it's changed. It's changing date, which means this is midnight. So in this case, we would let it change, and then we would set it for, let's say, 7 in the morning, or let's make it 10:10 in the happy face. Make it 10:10 there. So that's just before noon. Push it back down. In the case of the screw down, you would do that. Okay. So we did this because Cap kept asking me, and I said we gotta have to meet up for this because it's going to be a long discussion, and clearly that hasn't happened. So we're trying this. Plus, I'm actually trying to figure out how the heck I do something like this, which I have never done before. Meaning editing all this stuff, putting it together, and figuring it out. That's me. Thank you very much for joining us. Cap, I hope you figured out how to use your watch before you buy the second one, which I'm already working on. And hopefully, actually, the second watch you want to own is going to be our next feature. That's a watch, because we're also going to do cars. But if not, we'll find something else, such as what is behind me, a Zimbe. Goodbye.